Introducing Professor Colin Herron, CBE. Over 45 years in the automotive industry, including 17 years with Nissan. An expert in manufacturing methodology at Nissan, he completed his MSc and PhD with a focus on Japanese manufacturing techniques. Appointed a CBE in 2018 for business and renewable energy, a specialist in EV trends and currently highly involved in developing the introduction of low-carbon vehicle technology. We feel very fortunate to have Professor Colin Herron, CBE, as our guest here today to give his unfiltered advice on current EV issues and discuss with us just how sustainable the EV market is. Thank you for travelling down from Newcastle University today to join us for our podcast. This is Colin's authentic, credible opinion based on his experience of the automotive industry, his role with the Faraday Institution, and much more. Professor Colin Herron, CBE, privileged to have you here today with your expertise and vast industry knowledge on, obviously, battery electric vehicles and the motor trade in general. Background at Newcastle University and Nissan for 17 years, I think it was.
Yeah, I was in engineering.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, yourself and what's led you to this point in your life?
Well, the full story was, unfortunately, advised to leave school at a young age. I didn't quite manage A levels or anything, and I joined a company, ironically, making crankshaft seals for the automotive industry.
Okay.
1987, a car company opened called Nissan. So I thought, if I want to learn and develop, I'm going to join Nissan. So I joined Nissan in 87. In 89, I was sent to Japan for 6 weeks working on the first Primera. And interestingly, out there, we saw a little vehicle called a Hyper Mini, which was electric.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely thought nothing of
So
it.
it was electric back then?
Yeah. About 2008, 2009, I was talking to a civil servant, and he mentioned this new electric car from Nissan. Didn't know anything about it. 2009, I ended up on a test track in Japan driving a Leaf.
Right.
It was disguised, but it was, crikey, what's this?
Yeah.
I was actually driving,
Wow.
not just a Mini, I was driving a family car.
Yeah.
That was something really different. Came back, and I ended up in a strange 3-year period of my life, 2 to 3 years, where I was working between the British government, Gordon Brown, Peter Mandelson, Nissan's board, and I was helping shape the conditions and the terms to secure the Leaf and the first Giga plant in the UK.
Right.
Hence the CBE.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
That's where
congratulations.
it led into.
Oh, congratulations on the CBE. I mean,
Thank you.
was it the Queen that you met when?
No, it was the now King.
Right. Okay.
It was a now King, and yes, it was 2018.
Yeah.
Went to the palace. It was then.
So quite instrumental then in shaping policy
Yeah.
around the future mobility of the UK. How do you feel that has gone? Do you feel that those decisions that were taken then and the strategy that's been rolled out since then, is it the right path that we're on? Do you think there's going to be a differential in the path going forwards?
I think if you look at Western Europe, the situation is that having worked in engineering, you learn that you don't design a car in a week.
Yeah.
You don't design a strategy in a week.
Yeah.
Vehicle platforms last about 8 years.
Okay.
The decisions that are being made will not be affected by policy now.
No.
So Nissan, my old company, said they're going full electric by 2030.
Yes.
That's enormous. Billions of money.
Yeah.
They're going.
Yes.
You
And we hear
you
the same
can't
from
stop.
all. Yes.
You can't stop now.
Yeah.
Some of the car when I first started in this, there was a Nissan Leaf, then a Tesla, and a Mitsubishi i-MiEV.
Okay.
There was the E-Up,
Yeah. Yeah.
the Renault Fluence, and nothing else. Nothing happened. Then all the car companies saw the date coming,
Yes.
and all of a sudden,
Got to do something. Yeah.
some of them are still hanging on, wondering what they've done. They're in trouble now.
Yeah.
They're trying to roll back. They're trying to change policy. But the enlightened are just crashing through this.
Yeah. And do you think that, looking to the future, I mean, clearly at the moment there's a big push towards electric vehicles. There's a lot of policy, processes at the moment, and we'll come on to perhaps some of those that penalise manufacturers for not having a certain amount of their production and their sales being EVs. But going forwards, in terms of a fuel mix, if you like, obviously from 2035, I think it is now, manufacturers won't be able to sell ICE derivatives in the UK. Whether there's a change in government that changes that, who knows. But do you see the mix of fuel going forward being just electric? Do you see there being any sort of alternatives coming into the fray? I know hydrogen's an option for some, and there's some, BMW in particular and Toyota are looking at that as an option. How do you see that panning out?
For 2030 and 2035, hydrogen in cars is dead. Completely and utterly dead.
Right.
There's no point in hanging on to the dream.
No.
It's dead.
Right. Interesting.
Toyota's discounted the Mirai 60% in California, and it's now $36 a kilogram.
Right.
I believe in the West around here it's £22 a kilogram.
Right.
And we're down to 5 hydrogen pumps.
Right. Yeah.
It's a dream. It's it's ended. I can't see that changing.
No.
One of the things that I think may happen, I hope it does actually, is that forget about making everything tailpipe emission zero.
Yeah. I.e. lorries, vans, or everything.
Most of the lorries can go electric. Because a lot, they just it doesn't matter. They're on a milk run.
Yeah.
So they go from a port to a factory to the port to a factory or something like that.
Yeah.
They can cope with it. It's been proven. Tratton, the whole lot are going electric. Get that. What I can't see is how a British Army tank transporter is going to travel a 50-ton tank from the top of Scotland down to Italy in a battery truck.
Yeah.
I can't see it happening.
No. There's got to be some element of that.
Whether it's vegetable oil or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But if we convert 8 million vans and 35 million cars, it'll cancel that out.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be realistic.
So if we just look then on electric as obviously your expertise and that being the future of mobility in the United Kingdom, our customers are nurses, doctors, police officers, firefighters and so on. We provide a value opportunity for them to access mobility in the most affordable way that we can, but one of the considerations I think there are many sort of anxieties about range. There's issues about longevity of battery life. You buy a petrol car now, you don't think, well, how long is the engine going to last? Am I going to need to replace it, or is it going to devalue the product in the future? With your expertise and knowledge of the manufacturing process, how batteries work and operate, what reassurance and knowledge can you give to our customers and our audience that buying into an electric vehicle doesn't come along with those fears? Are they just fueled by media and misconception? You see an advert of a Tesla on fire and everyone worries that battery electric vehicles are going to go up in flames. Of course, it's one out of, is there any sort of knowledge you can share with us and give our customers some reassurance that that's not the case?
We'll start with the battery life.
Yes.
All right. I believe it's a Tesla in Belgium doing 1.5 million kilometres.
Right.
All right?
Yeah.
Still going.
Yeah.
And we've also got to look at whether you're buying a car or you're buying a second-hand car. Most people who buy a car keep it 3 or 4 years. All the research that I've seen and has been published is the batteries are lasting a lot longer than anybody thought they would.
Yeah.
A lot further. So we have to use the dreaded AI, artificial intelligence modelling, to try and work out how long these things will last.
Yeah.
Based on what we've seen before.
Yes.
Because there isn't a 20-year-old NMC 811 battery car out there.
No.
That's one of the problems.
Yeah.
But the Tesla ones and the ones we've seen are way beyond the mileage that was thought of.
Okay. Well, these batteries are all made up of different materials now, aren't they? I've seen a thing recently. Some are lithium, some have got other elements to them.
They've all
as well.
got lithium.
Is there a sort of a new standard that's going forwards?
They've all got lithium.
Yes.
At the moment.
Yes.
And we're not going to go too technical on this, right? They're known as NMC batteries.
Yeah.
Nickel, cobalt, manganese. That's what it stands for. What is different is the ratios of those, and the ratios determine how the battery performs.
Yeah.
So you might hear 622, 811, 523.
I see. So
that's the ratios of those materials within those batteries. They all have lithium in. You may hear LFP, lithium iron phosphate,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's like a lower grade battery.
Mm-hmm.
It's a workhorse type battery.
Right.
Simplifying it, it's a workhorse type battery.
Okay. Yep.
May end up in buses,
Mm-hmm.
may end up in trucks,
Yep.
may end up in smaller cars.
Yep.
The other one is sodium ion
Right. Yes.
to get rid of the lithium.
Yep.
Already working with that to bring them out.
Okay.
What we'll probably see going forward
Yep.
is when the Holy Grail, wait for it,
Mm.
which is solid state
Yes.
NMC batteries
Yep.
appear.
Yep.
They'll appear in your Aston Martins, Ferraris, da-da.
Yep.
The NMC will be in your Audis, your BMWs, your Qashqais, da-da.
Okay. Yep.
The LFP
Yeah.
will be in what used to be the Mini, the Alto,
Yeah.
in that level.
Yeah. Yep. Understand.
I've got an NMC battery in my Renault Zoe,
Yeah.
and I can leave anybody at the traffic lights.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't need to.
No. Okay.
It's used by my wife most of the time.
Yes.
If I put an LFP battery in there,
Mhm.
she wouldn't have a clue.
No. Okay. So, on that point, then, in terms of there's continued evolution and development
Yeah.
of this, and it's going to happen. You know, that's
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
that's the way of the world. The price point and the manufacturing costs of batteries is clearly reduced.
Yep.
As a company, we're seeing a lot more incentives from manufacturers to support the transition for customers moving away from ICE to electric vehicles. And obviously, new technology comes in at a big cost because there's lots of investment, and that return needs to go back. What is the actual sort of cost of a battery, you know, on a rudimentary basis, if you like? How do you envisage the sort of price point of batteries, the trajectory of the cost? You know, are we going to see a continual reduction in cost for battery vehicles because they're going to fall down tiers, like you've just said? Or do you think at the moment they've good value that we're seeing, the prices we're seeing for these cars?
Right. It's always priced at pounds per kilowatt hour.
Yes.
So the target is always just being $100 per kilowatt hour, or we'll just stick at £100 per kilowatt hour. It's come down in a big curve and it's fairly level.
Yes.
But what we haven't got is high volume battery plants.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest battery plant in this country can only make about 40,000 batteries.
Right. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Its replacement is 6 times the size of
Wow.
that.
Wow.
And its sister plant, which we built alongside it, is another one.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty soon, instead of having 2 gigawatts, on that site there'll be 34 gigawatt hours. These big battery plants are not on stream yet.
Right.
And the other thing is, if there becomes a differential, so you could buy a 2 litre Audi, I could buy a 1 litre Audi, or I could buy something else.
Yes.
The price differential is in the vehicle size and spec.
Yep.
What if I said to you, I'll give you an LFP battery, it shortens your range by 10%, but you only charge it once a week, and the car will be 20% cheaper.
Yeah. Yep.
So we haven't got the point of market differentiation yet. No. So everything that's come out has been high spec. I would suspect it allows the companies to reclaim some of the billions they've sunk in electric cars.
Yes. Obviously, as a country, the government's removed a lot of the incentives that were in place for your retail customer to get an electric vehicle. Company car drivers now are probably the main beneficiaries of a tax advantage. How do you see China influencing this pricing point in the UK? Because clearly at the moment there's this big push from China, are producing electric vehicles, new brands are coming into the UK market. Are they doing something different? Is it lower cost of labour? Is it the fact that they've got resources on their doorstep? Do you envisage that having a big, is it going to have a big effect on the actual European car manufacturers, do you think?
Just saying earlier, I remember Japan was going to wipe out the car industry. I remember a video of Americans with sledgehammers smashing up Toyotas and Nissans in America because it was going to kill the American car industry. And it didn't
happen. No.
It didn't happen.
No.
One of the things we're going to have to watch for, and I think this is going to be a really interesting one. At the moment, China can use whatever fuel in whatever manner to produce anything it wants with no restrictions. when we have battery passports come out and we have other control systems where pricing will be dependent on impact on the climate,
Yes.
things might change.
And that's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah. It's an interesting point, isn't it? They can, and a lot of it is subsidised by the Chinese government, and there's a lot of inroads there. But I think it'll be interesting to see how the UK consumer adapts to that, because going back to the Nissan Leaf and all those years ago, there was a lot of brand snobbery in this country, and I think there's an element that's moved away now to tech snobbery. So I was saying to someone yesterday, people want tech.
I think some people in this country on really restricted incomes will buy the cheapest thing that'll do, and they don't care where it comes from.
That's right. Yeah.
However, I can see certain members of the press telling everybody the Chinese are spying on them and not to buy a Chinese car because they'll know everywhere you've been and what you've done.
Yeah. I've read the same article, I think. Yeah.
And that will put people off.
It will. Yeah. And it's early days, and I think there's obviously going to be some people that are going to be a few guinea pigs, I think, to start off with for those brands. But
the Koreans came in.
Yeah.
There was loads of brands.
Yeah.
And they consolidated.
Yeah.
To the market share they've got.
But they've done very well, haven't they? Kia's a top brand in the UK now, and I think they, selling over 100,000 cars.
Nissan made the big splash with the Leaf, then did nothing.
Yeah.
The Koreans pursued it, and the Chinese pursued it. So if they had the foresight and they put the effort in instead of whinging and dragging the heels, fair play to them.
Yeah. But there's got to be some big. The focus at the moment is on the vehicles, but there's got to be a huge shift in infrastructure focus, hasn't there? I think, I've got an electric car myself. I don't really need to charge it publicly, but the times I do, it can be a real pain. And I live in a house that I can have a charge point. If I lived in a high rise, or if I lived in a street, with on street parking, or I did lots of journeys that required to top up en route. At the moment, it just isn't easy. It's complicated. It can be stressful. It means putting thought into it. How's that going to improve?
I'll give it the opposite.
Yes.
I live on the 3rd floor. I don't have a charge point.
Okay.
I go down to a local fastnet station. There's 450 kilowatts. Auto connect. No cards, no fobs, no apps.
Right.
I plug it in. I go for a 40-minute walk along the seafront, and that's me charged for the week.
Yeah. So it can be done, but I think obviously there's different circumstances for different people, and I think there are going to be struggles, aren't there? My
genuine concern, is that the UK does not have a strategy for 2030. It's relying on 300 odd local authorities putting in what they think is right, and the private sector's doing what it wants to do.
Yeah.
So we got this measure now of charges per 100,000 population. Fantastic. So how do you compare Keswick with Hillingdon? It's just nuts.
No.
It doesn't work.
No.
So we got this measure which then says to a council, the more you put in, the better you are. We'll fill the streets with lamppost chargers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nobody wants them. You can't have private parking.
No.
So the problem we've got is the policy and the media are driving behaviours in the councils, which the drivers don't necessarily want.
No. It's so early, isn't it? It'll find its way, I suppose. But I think it's interesting times. There's not a lot of time, though, is there, before these things need.
But a lot of the infrastructure, and it's my job, it's my life. I research it. Is used 5% of the time. Yeah, 95% it's doing nothing.
Yeah, and I think I've charged my car publicly twice, and I've had it 2.5 years. So that's a prime example of that. But
when people say there aren't many charge points, there's over 1 million because you've got one. Because you've got it, you don't use a public one.
Yes. Yeah.
If there was 1 million public ones, they'd just be doing nothing.
Yeah. So what are you working on at the moment in terms of your professional career? Is your focus on the battery side of vehicles, or infrastructure, or a mixture of both?
Yes.
Is there a specific sort of angle?
One of the fascinating things in this country, and where I live, and just call it Newcastle, it's easier because nobody knows where Whitley Bay is that we are actually able to mine lithium in this country. In Cornwall and Weardale.
Are we really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No.
So the old Cornish mines, which are copper and tin, actually produce a lot of lithium.
Yeah.
But it was a problem years ago.
Yeah, byproduct.
In Weardale, from granite, you can bring it out in brine and extract it.
Okay.
So on Teesside, soon we will have processing plants.
Right.
making the lithium into lithium hydroxide for use.
Yep.
We've got them going into cells in Sunderland, cars in Sunderland, second life battery use and recycling.
Right.
One of the unique things is that's the whole cycle.
Yeah.
Because one of the things about environmental is the EU are setting the regulations of how much recycled material must go into a virgin battery.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That doesn't exist for a petrol engine because you just burn the petrol and it goes up in the air and the battery gets crushed. It does get recycled, but it doesn't have to go back in specifically into a vehicle. Right? So one of the things about the carbon footprint as well is when a car's crushed, it's dead.
Yes.
We are taking the batteries out of cars, putting them in containers and using them as energy storage.
Right.
And they can run for another 5, 6, 7 years, reducing coal-fired power stations, and then we recycle them.
Yeah, interesting.
So I'm looking at that, but academically I'm looking at how many chargers do we actually need?
Right, okay. Yeah, I haven't got a clue.
Nobody else.
No.
Including me.
Work in progress. Yeah. Okay. So, from a customer point of view, we obviously are trying to transition as many of our customers as we can now and educate them to the option of electric vehicles. And we're seeing a big push from manufacturers who are now incentivizing with things like free home chargers, increasing the discounts that are available. So there is a big push to increase that as we build up to 2030, 2035. But I suppose from a consumer point of view, when you see a price falling, you wonder whether that price is going to continue to fall. Is it the right time to buy now, or shall I wait to see further price reductions or further incentives coming along the line that will be a trigger point for me to switch from petrol to electric? I think we feel now is a really good time to be buying electric vehicles. We're seeing really good offers, and we're seeing much more uptake from our customers compared to what we had last year. But from a value point of view, how do you see that? You know, you obviously own an electric car yourself. How do you see this point in time?
I bought a Zoe 3 years ago, and I took a 5-year-old Nissan Leaf in, and I got about 8,200 for it. The dealer then put it on the forecourt at 10.2. I checked on it a year later, putting the reg in, and it was 12.
Right.
So one of the things in a transition, which is a difficult thing to forecast, is that when there's a dearth of second-hand vehicles, I'm seeing in councils and people who are putting contracts out where the supplier must have a zero-emission vehicle, zero-emission zones, etc., etc., etc. So there's a lot of people out there want a second-hand electric vehicle, one, for greenwashing, and two, to save money in emission zones.
Yes.
My city's an emission zone. When we get to the point where there is mass volume electric vehicles, the price will come down, and there will be smaller vehicles and new chemistries. In my honest opinion, I can't see much change in the next 2 to 3 years. The reason I say that is the big battery plants. The Jaguar Land Rover one is a hole in the ground. The Nissan one has got its roof on and a kit going in, and the other one's a planning permission stage. I can't see the big volume coming for another 3 years. So when people say EV sales are levelling off, I completely agree. They always will go into.
Yes, because of the limitations in supply, and it's the old economic supply demand equation that then balances it all out.
It is, and not only that, the car makers will sell the car where it'll make the most profit. So if they can ship thousands of cars to Norway and make €1,000 more than selling the car in Spain, they'll keep the market in Spain, but they'll send a lot of cars to Norway.
There's going to be a lot of penalties for car manufacturers this year if they don't hit certain targets. I think it's 20% of UK sales. There's, I think, it's £15,000 per car below that, something. I mean, that's colossal, isn't it? The implications for these manufacturers and all the brands within the UK are quite
quite substantial if they don't hit that number, which I think is why we're seeing this big push. Do you think the likes of Tesla and the 100% electric brands will be trading, their EV credits as such,
Absolutely,
like carbon credits?
are.
And how will that? Do you have any ideas how that might play out?
I've tried reading the writing and the legals in it, and it's really interesting. For instance, in this country, I genuinely don't know what Toyota would sell.
No.
Now, they could be still selling what they call a self-driving hybrid, and perhaps they're buying volume off a 100% EV maker and trading that way. So perhaps Toyota and Tesla can do a deal.
You've got to have very low production costs, haven't you, to do that sort of money. If it's £15,000, Tesla's sat on quite a strong negotiating position, aren't they?
Fair bit.
For a huge volume as well. So, it's got to be very interesting for Tesla, I think.
So JLR's announced Agratas, their battery company, and that plant has to be up and running. They need those batteries.
Yeah.
Just a quick break to let you know that Motorfinity can save you thousands on a brand new car. The UK's armed forces veterans, NHS, emergency services, prison services, education and social carers are all eligible for our discounts. To date, we have saved our customers an average of £7,000 on their brand new cars.
Today, an ICE car is emitting certain emissions in its usage, and then we're switching to a battery electric vehicle that, there's going to have been a lot of emissions to have produced that vehicle. It's a heavy car, and then it relies on electricity. Is there is the difference significant between what the carbon effect is from both of those cars? I mean, is a battery electric vehicle significantly more environmentally friendly when you take into account the whole production and the energy it uses?
Let's look at it this way. If I'm making and charging an electric vehicle in France, as opposed to making a Range Rover in Poland,
yes,
I can tell you that EV is absolutely, definitely, categorically cleaner than the other.
Yes, right.
Because one is complete coal-fired power stations, etc. So let's get down to the basics. I've got a Renault Zoe, or I could have bought a Renault Clio. Apart from the battery and the engine, they're the same.
Yes.
The seats are the same, the carpets are the same, the headlights are the same, etc.
Yeah.
Everything in that car is the same. So what's different? The battery.
Yeah.
The production of the battery. Where does the carbon come in the production of the battery? The carbon comes from, at the moment, most of the cells get a cure time of about 10 days. Normally in a gas-fired oven.
Right. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's where it comes from. If we look at an ICE, you've got to make the engine. The engine, funnily enough, comes from a blast furnace, etc., etc. That is not the cleanest you've got. All right?
Yeah.
You then take the situation where you burn the stuff. And the cleanest car you've got is 95 grams.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
If you take my car and you take the current grid mix and the miles I do, etc., etc., mine comes out at about 27.
Right. Yeah. Massive difference then. Yeah.
That's between the two. Now, the thing about them being much heavier, my Zoe is 17% heavier than a Clio. But I hardly use my brakes ever.
Yes, same. Yeah. You on one pedal drive? Do you have one pedal drive on your?
Well, I do, because I never use the other one.
Yeah, it's I never touch my brake.
I never touch the brake.
No.
The only time I touch the brakes is if I'm coming to a pedestrian crossing and it's changed and I have to.
And suddenly,
I just don't use the brakes.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
So those particulates are disappeared. There's nothing coming out the tailpipe.
Yeah.
But the other thing is to remember, is what I said was, the battery has a first life in the car. It then has a second life in energy storage.
Yes. Yeah, which
That's
people don't recognise, I don't think.
They don't recognise.
No.
And I can recycle that battery and put it back into a battery. We're just working our way through the science of doing that.
What about tyres? I mean, there's the argument that tyres, particulates from heavy one. That's something I read about recently.
Yeah, I did. So here's another thing, folks. The biggest rip-off in the world is your EV car service. Mine tells me, my actual Zoe app tells me it has to go in July to have the air filter, the pollen filter changed. That's it.
Yeah. I must admit, I've had mine just over 2 years now, and it's not needed a service in over 2 years.
I just do for the warranty. You know, that it's supposed to go in for an MOT, goodness knows why. Then there was a thing on LinkedIn where the tyres last 5,000 miles. So my car went in for its service. I photographed the service record where they had the tyres, and I sent it in. If you drive the car like an idiot, you will wear out the tyres.
Yeah.
If you use the torque on the front wheels, you'll spin them.
Yeah, of course.
But most people are terrified over this range anxiety, so they don't accelerate.
No.
By the way, range anxiety is now known as range awareness.
Right.
I know exactly how far I can go.
Yeah. I think you've got to just plan a little bit, haven't you? I think it's changing your mindset from getting in the car and when the light comes on, you need to pop into a station and fill up with fuel. To me, I think you've just got to be a bit more forward thinking. You need to, if you've got 30-40% left on the battery, you need to make sure you put it on charge tonight. And if you go on a journey that's perhaps longer than what your range is, you just need to be a bit more forward thinking about it.
Mine frequently goes down to 21-22%.
Yeah.
But people, be aware, and we did a study, you think you drive twice as far as you do.
I do agree.
We did a whole study in Newcastle and asked people how far they drove on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We then plotted their route, and they think they go twice as far as they do. They just don't. So I am literally down to recharge the car once a week.
Right. Yeah.
If we happen to make a big journey midweek, it might be different. But we went all last week, and I checked it, and it was 36% on the Sunday when I filled it again.
Yeah. And is there any advice you can give in terms of, looking after your battery as such?
No.
Sometimes I'll run mine down as really low and think deplete it all and then charge it up. Is there this saying that above 80% puts stress on the battery?
Technically it's 20 to 80%.
Yeah,
right?
Above 80 is stressful for the battery, is it? Because it doesn't balance the ions or something like that. That's what
most people are on a PCP for 3 years. Who cares? It's going to last 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I let mine go down 30%, and then I put it on a Sunday morning because I do something else, and when the app says it's full, I just take it off.
Yeah.
I could set it for 85
80,
or whatever.
Yeah.
But I take it off, and that's it. It runs at that.
Yeah. It's not going to make any difference in reality long term, and to you it doesn't really matter necessarily because you're going to have sold the car before it's even relevant.
There was a famous leaf down in Cornwall as a taxi, and all the guy did was high power charging. That's all he did, and was still pottering about.
Yeah. I think it's just overcoming these objectives in the minds of people. We all read things, we all understand things, and from sometimes a journalistic perspective, it can put an unbalanced view in your mind, and I think we've got to overcome all of those things.
Quentin Wilson and Robert Llewellyn, who I know them both well, are just running so many campaigns. The American government have had to produce a booklet of myth busting
really
things.
Yeah,
they've had to produce it because some of the things that are read. In fact, I mean, there's definitely 2 national newspapers in this country running orchestrated complaints, and it's been so successful that a hospital actually banned electric vehicles from parking in a multi-storey car park.
Right.
And everybody's convinced the Luton Airport was an electric vehicle.
Yeah,
absolutely convinced.
Yes. One
Even
of my staff was there, was parked next to it.
Even though it was photographed, and the guy who owns it said it was a diesel, will not accept it.
No. What would you say to our customers? And as I said before, these are people that have a whole range of different jobs. Some of them are carers that are going from home to home on a daily basis. Some of the doctors that are on call, firefighters, ambulance drivers, armed forces personnel, and so on. If they're thinking about the next car choice at the moment, what would you say for them to consider an EV? What would be your sort of tips and perhaps to persuade them that perhaps is the right time and the right thing to do?
If you are a person, and I see them regular, going to a house to look after somebody, it's this house, then you go to another house, then another house, then another house. Petrol diesel cars don't like that.
No.
They really do not like going 2 miles, stop, 2 miles, start, stop. A second-hand Zoe or something like that is perfect for that because it doesn't care. It just drives. My wife describes the Zoe as a magic carpet. It's so easy to drive.
Yeah.
Hill starts, whatever you want, and acceleration at roundabouts.
Yeah.
People who are in normal working jobs drive somewhere, park, come home. Drive somewhere, park, come home.
Yes.
Even painters who've got a van
Yeah.
go somewhere and paint all day
and then
drive home.
Indeed, yes.
They don't do the mileage.
Yeah.
So if you are, and the MOT, the people who record the MOT mileage, the average person now is down to 5,500 miles.
Yeah. We do a lot of obviously PCP finance for customers, and we'll say to them on the the point of quoting, what's your annual mileage? And people say 12, 15,000, and we will say, well, hang on, that's a lot. Let's work it out. What's your average mileage to work? What do you do at weekends? And because what we realise is people are often going well above, paying for the extra depreciation on the vehicle that they don't need, because at the end of it, you don't get the credit back that you've done 15,000 miles over 3 years rather than 30,000 miles over 3 years. You don't get money back, but obviously if you do more, you pay. But so I think we're surprised often that people well overestimate.
Urbanite in where we live. My Zoe will be 3 years old at the end of July. It's done 13,500.
Yes,
and it's nearly 3 years old.
Yeah.
And most of the cars I've seen around where I live do less than mine.
Yeah. Is there any particular product on the market at the moment? Obviously, you're a Nissan in your blood to somewhat.
Well, I've got a
Renault, Nissan, the alliance there. But product development, products you're seeing on the road, there's lots of new models being released at the moment by all manufacturers. Anything that takes your eye? Anything that you sort of see as quite interesting?
Well, I am dead fortunate. I'm going to Japan on Monday. And apparently Nissan's got a little one called the Sakura.
Okay.
For those who don't know, Sakura is Japanese for cherry blossom.
Right.
And it's a small, compact vehicle.
Yeah.
I don't know what size battery's in, but there is also one coming out of BYD. I think it's called the Seagull.
Right.
So these vehicles are now being produced.
Yes.
They haven't arrived yet, but I'm going out to do my own research.
Due diligence, yes.
But Tesla's not making a Sakura.
No. A lot of manufacturers are pulling away from that smaller vehicle. Obviously, Ford stopped making the Fiesta earlier this year. Audi are going to stop the A1. So I think there is going to be a market opportunity for a small battery electric vehicle. What's it? The Funky Cat? The Aura Funky Cat.
Oh, there's a little Fiat as well.
Fiat-like looking car,
Now,
so cheap.
The other thing which is changing in the industry is that I remember many years ago there was a discussion about why does every car maker have a 1 litre engine? Why don't we just have a 1 litre engine? Exactly.
Yeah.
So what we're now starting to see is the car makers are not making the battery, whereas the car makers made the engine.
Yes.
Yeah. Therefore, several car makers can use the same chemistry, the same battery, and to be quite honest, the person who buys the car does not care who made the battery.
No.
It's what the car looks like and what it's inside.
Yeah.
Therefore, if we get to more common product like the battery, and it's across several models, the cost will come down.
It's an interesting point, isn't it? So so that piece of hardware is pretty much the same across the board. But what defines the uniqueness of it? So why does my range last longer than the others? Why does mine go from 0 to 62 quicker than the other one? Why does mine charge faster? Is it to do with then the technology that sits on top of the programming and all of that makes me unique as a brand? Because something's got to define me, than just the look, I suppose.
But everybody's been driven to charge faster and go more distance. So all that means is we're now producing vehicles. Well, I mean, the Hummer is the extreme example of stupidity. I don't need a 100 kilowatt hour battery. If I have a 100 kilowatt hour battery, I'm going to want to charge it at 350 kilowatts. I'm going to put shed loads of cobalt in, shed loads of lithium in, and I'm never going to use it. We as a society have to ask the question, are we moving to electric to save money or to save lives? What is the whole thing about? The whole thing is about, as was that poor girl in London, The judge said she died from street pollution.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The climate, no matter, unless you're in a certain group following a certain bloke with a suntan in America,
yes.
who deny it,
Yeah.
we're just being told the sea temperatures are going up and up and up. We've got to work out what are we trying to do here. So I would suggest it's better for people to buy a smaller car and drive less
Yeah.
for the same price as a bigger car and driving more.
Yeah.
But we as a society have to decide that.
Yes. And is your personal rationale, is that environmentally based then yourself? For
It is, because I don't see why I need a big car.
No.
I can go out and buy one. But I've actually gone smaller. So I went from the Leaf to the Zoe, and it's smaller.
Yeah.
But there's me and my wife.
Yeah. And is it a generational thing as well, do you think? Do you think you talked about somebody in America, do you think as the younger population grows up, they're going to be more environmentally conscious?
They're going to be more environmentally conscious. And one of the cars, which you may all well remember, that absolutely baffled me, was the Fiat 500. Right? Nobody my age would ever buy a Fiat, because it stood for Fiat, fix it again, Tony. Right? They brought that 500 out. The young people just bought it.
Yeah.
It was an icon. They just bought it.
Yeah.
I think that's what will happen again.
If one of my fears as a consumer is the safety of this car, I'm driving around in a car, if I have an accident now in a petrol engine, it's developed over the years, you've got crumple zones, you've got bars that protect you and so on, but underneath me is a big battery, a solid heavy battery, and I have an accident. What are the risks that am I in a riskier situation in a collision? Is there a higher chance of fire in that situation? And when the car's perhaps parked, is there a higher chance of fire because of overcharging or whatever? What's the situation there?
You're either in a situation where you're sitting in the back of the car on top of the world's biggest petrol bomb, which when it goes off is pretty spectacular.
Yes.
Or you're sitting on a battery. One of the things about the battery is it is actually part of the physical structure of the vehicle. It can make the vehicle stronger.
Right.
Where it goes wrong is when the battery is pierced or it has a short circuit.
Yep.
If you think of, good way of describing this, if you think of the battery is a tin of beans.
Yep.
There's sauce and there's beans and there's all the things going on. There's chemical reactions happening there.
Yep.
When those chemical reactions get out of control, we have a problem.
Yes.
Because they actually make, through the reaction, the fuel to make the fire worse. All right? Now, people sometimes say they can see smoke coming from a battery. It's not. It's known as a vapor cloud.
Okay.
It's a bomb waiting to go off.
Right.
However, the incidents of that happening are a lot less than petrol and diesel cars.
Yes.
And the big example was the Luton Airport.
Yeah.
It wasn't an EV. It was a diesel. They all catch fire.
Yeah.
For the fire brigades, and we as a university and other people are working with them, is to how to control the fire when it goes off.
Right. Yes.
Because just dumping a lot of water on it doesn't happen. Is a problem.
Yeah.
The other area where there's serious problems is do-it-yourself electrification of bikes and scooters.
Right. I see. Yeah.
We know you can buy lithium-ion cells on the internet, make your own thing, buy a hooky charger, put it into a house at night, and there's about 12 people died that way. That's a problem.
Yeah. Like the vapes, you're not allowed to put in your luggage on the planes, they catch fire. It's a similar sort of concept.
It's a similar sort of thing.
Yes.
They're cheap, they're horrible, they're nasty, and they will catch fire.
Yeah.
So we've got to educate people, but also we're working on how to put the fire out, how to control it better. Will moving to lithium iron phosphate reduce the fire risk? Will solid state reduce the fire risk?
Yeah.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
But we're working on it, and it's not as bad as it's portrayed.
Okay. What if I went over a speed bump a little bit too fast? I'm a young driver, and I'm trying to impress my friends, and I go over a speed bump too fast. Underneath the car, whacks the battery. Does that is that something that we need to be conscious of? Are they
Yeah.
the sort of things that are going to cause trouble for people?
If you go over a speed bump at the speed that would normally rip your exhaust off, you will
Which
scratch
happens.
it, you will do some damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would it be the situation like that could cause a fire to occur?
If you really hit it and
Yes.
you punctured it,
Right.
yeah, it could.
Yeah.
But we are talking going over at
Yes.
a
Yes.
heck of a speed and damaging it.
Yeah.
One of the things on oil, and we've got to raise the subject of Toyota and a few others are talking about burning hydrogen in engines. Hydrogen comes in 3 formats. There's several colours, but we'll just stick with brown stroke black, blue and green. Brown stroke black is producing hydrogen from natural gas via methane, and it's dirty.
Yeah.
There we go. Blue hydrogen is the holy grail of the oil and gas industry, because what they're saying is we can make really, really clean hydrogen by capturing the CO2.
Right. Okay.
It's not been achieved on a commercial scale, and there's been several really expensive failures doing it. So the challenge comes is, what is the tariff on blue hydrogen in terms of CO2 per kilogram? Green hydrogen is 0 CO2.
Yes.
But you can't put blue hydrogen into a fuel cell vehicle because it'll kill the fuel cell.
Right. Okay.
You can only put green hydrogen in. A lot of people say, but all that comes out the back is water.
Yeah.
But people don't mention you've got to put water into the electrolyzer to split the hydrogen off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's 45 litres of water per car fill.
Right.
300 litres per truck.
Right.
So every time you fill a truck
Yeah.
with green hydrogen, you need 300 litres of pure water.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of places got water shortages.
Yes. Yes.
Now this is a first world problem. My daughter, husband and grandchildren live in Chad.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Right. I was out there in February, and there is not a hope they will have electric vehicles.
No.
None whatsoever. As in, she goes 3-4 days without electricity. At all.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We are going to have hybrids or something in that nature in those areas
For a
for
long
many,
time.
many
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And isn't it quite dangerous? When you talk about bombs and cars and so on, the hydrogen process within some of these hydrogen cars, is there the hydrogen as a chemical, is it quite unstable?
I wouldn't. It's not unstable. You just can't keep hold of it.
No.
It's one of the smallest things in the universe.
Yes.
It disappears out
Yeah.
of places. I would say that Toyota people, and I've seen the tanks they make, and I've seen where they test them, I would not be concerned in a crash with that.
No.
However, there's a few of the hydrogen filling stations blown up.
Yeah.
And if you have a leak of it,
Yeah.
it escapes awfully
Quickly. Yes.
And the servicing is expensive, and you've got to have special people, and the garages have got to be designed differently.
Yep.
So in London, when they got the R12, I think it was the R12 or the R1 bus route with single deckers, you've got to build a servicing shed for them, because you've got to shape the roof to let the hydrogen escape out of it, and it all goes very quickly, and you can't see it, and you can't smell it.
Yeah.
There is problems.
Okay. So batteries, electric vehicles, definitely the way forward. Just on one more sort of advice or knowledge you could impart on our customers, driving your car and charging your car during the winter months versus summer months and so on. Obviously I've got an electric car, as you have yourself, and I notice a big change
about 20%.
in range. Huge. Yeah. I mean, is what's the reason for that, and what are the optimal sort of conditions should you be charging? Is it about the temperature when you charge the car? Should you charge it in the warmer daylight temperature to maximize the battery's capacity? How does that all factor?
In short, and I'm not a chemical engineer, the little ions that move backwards and forwards when it's very cold and very hot get very sluggish. and they don't want to move as quick, a bit like us.
Yeah, they've got their optimum.
They've got their optimum speed and their
Yes.
optimum transition,
Yes.
and that's what controls it. Also, if the battery's been high power charged, it will slow down the charging rate. And one of the confusions is every vehicle has a different charging curve.
Yes.
Petrol's linear. You stick it in,
Yes.
it flows.
Yes.
With these, it doesn't. So if your car says it will charge at 350, it might
Yeah.
for a little while.
Yeah.
Then it
It's
drops
going to
off.
drop off.
It's the average speed that it charges
Yeah.
at, and that'll tell you how long it's on for. But there is challenges with the change in weather. Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So your cost in the winter goes up.
So if I was looking at a range that's advertised on a brand new car and it says to me WLTP standards are 372 miles on a full charge, what would be a sensible assumption that in the coldest months of the year I'm going to get from that range?
I forget about that completely.
Yeah.
Right? In the summer, you'll get about 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. About 3.8 in the winter.
Right.
Stick with that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Stick with that.
Well, you say 20%, and that's
Yeah.
about
That's what I would
yeah.
work with. If I'm out in Northumberland on a country road, my target is to hit 5 in the summer. Regen braking on the curves to try and build it up.
Yep.
But I would say if you said 4.6, 4.7, and the car makers themselves will say if they can hit 5 all year round,
5 miles per kilowatt hour. Yeah.
that's doing really well.
Yeah.
If they get to 6,
Yeah.
game changer.
Okay. The kilowatt hour as a measurement
Yes.
is very new to a lot of people.
Yeah.
We don't understand it. I must admit it's something that I'm learning about. I learned about it at school, but you see these batteries with X kilowatt hour, charging at X kilowatt hour, range X kilowatt hour. Perhaps if you could just educate me and our audience as to what that definition equates to and how we can measure it and compare it, it would be just a useful analysis.
The easiest way is the light bulb.
Okay.
All right. If you've got a 1 kilowatt light bulb and it burns for 1 second,
Right.
it will use 1 kilowatt.
Right. Okay.
If it burns for the hour, that's why it's priced per the hour.
Right.
That's
Okay.
the equivalent. So the battery capacity is how much it will expend in an hour.
Right. Okay.
The problem with the charger is it's how much power it can put in
In the hour.
the hour.
Right.
And the
okay.
other is the energy it dispenses.
Right. Okay.
I know it's complicated.
Yes.
Even myself.
It is complex.
It
yeah.
is
Yeah.
But one, just think of it as the capacity.
Yes.
And if it's a 50 kilowatt hour, you can burn 50 kilowatts.
Okay. So if I've got two options, one's a 50 kilowatt hour battery and one's a 75 kilowatt hour battery on a car, one's going to last longer than the other.
Divided by your 4.5
Yes.
into it, and it'll tell
Okay,
you
how many miles.
far
Yes.
you can go,
Understood.
not how long it will last.
How far you can. Yes. Okay. All right. Very useful. Thank you very much. Yeah. Is there any final thoughts?
right.
Are there any tips or advice that you've got for our customers?
What I would say, being quite honest to all customers going forward, this is a journey where we don't know where it's going to end. We don't know what the battery chemistry will be. We don't know when that battery chemistry will arrive. What I can say to everybody is, and I'll use my old car company as an example, they're investing $3 billion in one plant in Sunderland.
Wow.
That's not the Tennessee plant or the Dearborn plant or this plant or that plant. They're setting down $3 billion,
Yeah.
building, we'll have 3 giga plants, 3 models, 100% EV. I always say, watch what industry's doing, not what the politicians are doing. JLR are building a 40 gigawatt hour plant in Somerset.
Right.
Huge.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 billion
Yes.
investment.
Yes.
They're not going to do that if they're not serious.
No.
That that's the way.
Yeah.
To look at it.
Get some comfort. Believe that this is the way forwards, and this is the direction that we're moving in.
How fast it'll move, how
Yeah.
fast the prices will drop, is another question. But the die set
Yeah.
It's now moving that way.
Yeah.
But if you are a petrol head and under no circumstances do you want to drive in an EV, you can still do that,
Yep.
so long as you can buy second-hand ones,
Mm-hmm.
and so long as there's some petrol pumps left.
Yeah. 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 Good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time today, Colin.
Before you go, we have one small favour to ask you. If you enjoyed this podcast, hit the subscribe button. It's free and supports us in supporting you. This is why we do what we do. We aim to make a difference. Can you help by subscribing now?